Hello, everybody, and welcome to Safe Space, the official Safe in Our World podcast. For those who don't know, the main goal of Safe in Our World is to create and foster worldwide mental health awareness within the video game industry and beyond. My name is Rosie, and today I'm joined by Jake and Hannah Rutherford. Hannah is a patron of Safe in Our World, as well as probably the most busy and passionate charity streamer I've ever met, and also has the shoutiest cat that I've ever seen on Twitch, and I love it so much.
Yeah, hi. Hello. She shouts so much. It's unbelievable.
It's just part of your branding now. I love it.
It is. It's just not even my cat. She's my partner's. I've just acquired this cat. But yeah, thank you so much for having me on the podcast.
Thank you for joining us. It's an absolute delight.
Yeah, thank you.
And we've done some work previously with fundraisers and stuff. So it's really nice to actually sit down and have a proper chat.
Yeah. Aside from the fundraising bit, which is always very high energy.
Oh my god!
There's not a lot of time for general chatting, is there? So this is very, very nice.
There's no time for niceties. It's can you do this? If not,
Yes.
That's okay. But I'm gonna have to run and not talk. To you.
I need to find someone else now. 40 other people, quick. Yeah,
exactly.
So
to start off the podcast, then could you please tell us a bit about yourself and your favourite game and why that game is your favourite game?
Okay, so I'm Hannah. I am a Bristol-based variety streamer under the name Lomadia. I've been doing content for 12 years now. Some on YouTube, the last something like 6 years on Twitch. I've been doing fundraising since actually a very long time. But yeah, in the last couple of years, doubled down on that. We play everything and anything apart from sports games. So at the moment, my favourite game is so difficult because a variety streamer means everything. I would probably say currently, at time of recording, my favourite game would be Alan Wake.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm a huge fan.
I'm fully into the remaster, replaying it at the moment. So it's just I remember all the little bits of it, just all the little bits of lore that you kind of forget when you've not played it for a while, and then the setting and the fact that it's just absolutely cheesy Stephen King misery kind of vibes. It's just great. I love it.
I've never played Alan Wake.
Oh, you should.
I know.
Have you played Control?
No.
Well, then, easy. Alan Wake, Control, because they both rely on each other a little bit. Control answers a lot of questions from Alan Wake, but no, they're fantastic. They're fantastic, and also very very relevant to the time of year is Alan and Control, and I think Control actually came out this time of year.
Ooh,
Alan didn't.
Games.
Alan's a May baby like me. Bless him.
Oh yeah, because I remember it was your birthday when we were doing the fundraiser back in May.
Yes. Yes, it was.
Nice. But then, so that's your current favorite game, but all-time favorite. Do you have a game that you always go back to, like a comfort game, like a nostalgic game?
Oh god, this is the problem. I'm maybe. There's loads of franchises, so Pokemon, Tomb Raider, where it's I won't necessarily go back to the original game, but I might dabble in a game.
Yeah,
from the franchise
to your heart.
I do, yeah. I just because of doing so much variety, it sometimes is really hard. I don't think I ever, as a kid, properly had a favorite game either. I think it was very much dependent on my mood. I'm so difficult when it comes to these things.
No, but I kind of agree because my favorite game changes so much, and I have games that I adore but don't replay just because it's I can't be bothered to go through it again. But I really liked it.
Yeah, and my dad, when I was growing up, he was not allowed to play video games because back in the day, 30-year-old men didn't play video games. You know, that sort of thing. Mum was not into the idea. So, but he was allowed to buy games for me and supervise. So it started out. It's you can see where it's going. So it starts out with educational stuff, like Maths Blaster and Wild Science Arcade, which are very, very early PC games. One's about maths and one's about physics. And then it kind of progressed to all of the little demo discs from magazines, which meant casino games, Duke Nukem. At the age of 7, by the way, Tomb Raider appeared out of nowhere because obviously woman on the cover. So he was like, "Oh, here is game that you might like." And Diablo 2 turned up at one point as well. So I probably have Dad to blame for just being completely all over the place when it comes to favorite games, for sure. But we'd probably have to say of all time, I think we'd have to say something like Tomb Raider, something from those early days.
You've totally just taken me back to a time where it was like I would watch my brother play games, and I remember this like really strange. I think it was like a quiz game about science, and on the cover there was this skull with a face, and it was really terrifying. But it was like all about educating youngsters and stuff, and I just remember it. Like I've not thought about that in years, and it's.
I
just
had
come
like,
back.
oh god, was it the Dawn in Kingsley, like interactive museum or whatever it was? You could like click around it. There was some ridiculous stuff for the PC in the early days. I think I also was there a Luigi? Oh god, this might explain why I prefer Luigi to Mario. But there was an educational game where Mario went missing, and Luigi had to go round the world answering trivia on like wonders of the world to find
Was this
Mario.
a Nintendo game?
No, well, it was a Nintendo game, but it was on PC.
Oh, weird.
And I don't know what it was. At some point, I'll look it up again, I'm sure. But it was, you ambled about with Luigi and Yoshi and answered questions about the Great Wall of China to get Mario back. So, yeah, you can see why it's just an absolute mess when it comes to games.
Oh my god, is it called Mario is Missing?
It is called Mario is Missing.
I've definitely not Googled it, but oh my god. 1994, it was released on Mac.
Yeah.
And the player controls Luigi, who must travel around the world to find and return stolen treasures as part of a quest to find his brother, who's been captured by Bowser. Oh my god, it's a series of educational Mario games.
Yeah, people wonder why I'm so confused about games. It's like, what was your first Mario Brothers experience? And it probably was that. Then the Game Boy.
Oh my god, honestly,
right.
some of the titles of these are amazing. It's like, I am a teacher, Super Mario sweater. Mario's Time Machine, or Mario Teaches Typing.
Oh no, Mario, no typing.
Isn't Nintendo remastering these?
Yeah.
All of them, put them all on the Switch. Like, come on.
The bumper pack, like brilliant.
Yeah, come on, Nintendo, don't be a coward. I want Mario is Missing on Switch, please. Oh my god, amazing.
Another thing, like I think this leads into the next question, but it kind of like I think it says a lot about you as a creator and sort of influence in the game industry. Like 10, 11 years ago, I was watching your YouTube channel, and I think it was like Dishonored was the first one I sort of caught.
Oh my god, I'm sorry.
No, like you were like really passionate about Dishonored, and it was like that made me want to buy it. But I sent like an email about just sort of like what I'm doing, and my owl, and we actually you actually replied, and it sort of went back and forth a few times, and I think I brought it up a few months ago, but I think it kind of leads into the next question about as a creator, as people get very popular, they seem to sort of not everyone, but like you always had this way of sort of making everyone feel like they were cared for and like you had an interest, and and it's carried on to your streams. Like I pop into your streams now, and the sort of way that you treat everyone as a friend, come in, welcome, sit down, let's natter, what inspired you to kind of keep doing that? What inspired you to then sort of get into charity streaming and all sorts?
Oh wow. So I think in terms of the charity streaming that I've always done charity stuff. I was thinking about it this morning because I was like, oh, actually, when really was charity a big deal for me? And I did rainbow guides all the way up to leader. And I did it in the era where you had the Blue Peter bring and buy sales and all of that stuff. And thinking back, I remember doing a lot of fundraising then with brownies. So for those people who are not familiar, like the Scouts, like Girl Guiding, etc. Those like
I did brownies too.
Yeah. But they had this big thing for ages when Blue Peter were doing these bring and buy, like you bring whatever, cakes, toys, sell them on, donate to charity. And we did so much of that. Like we did at least maybe 2 or 3 a year. And I think that somewhere in the back of my head is kind of just has been floating around for a while. And then I did a network I was in previously, did fundraising at Christmas times, which I was very heavily involved with for quite a while, doing some of the giveaway kind of stuff for that. Then there was a little bit of a break because I sort of went to solo, kind of solo anyway. So I thought, well, may as well do it properly solo, all the content creation, etc. And then we got to, oh goodness. I mean, there's been some favourite charities that I've done stuff with consistently every year. There's a local women's shelter and so forth. So I was doing those anyway. And then we kind of got to just before the pandemic, and we had the Australian bushfire. And we then had Black Lives Matter, like back to back, quick succession. And it basically started as, should we raise some money for the bushfires? Oh, and also maybe we should also do Black Lives Matter. And then it kind of ended up just being like 1 or 2 charities a month, not intentionally, just there are so many causes that we want to help, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
So,
it's absolutely incredible, like watching it all happen, and I'm sure it's exhausting at the same time.
Yeah, next year I'm dialing it back a little bit because obviously there are favourite charities that will still get stuff done for them at key points in the year, because I know when it's, for example, Alzheimer's Awareness Month. I know that Safe in Our World does stuff in May, etc. So there are key points in the year I'm still going to hit. I've recently joined Cosmic Hearts, which is a brand new stream team that's all about charity fundraising. So I think I'm going to offload some of the charity stuff that isn't me with like personal connections to charities to do within that sphere. Because whilst it has been amazing, it is exhausting. Absolutely. It's amazing how much has happened and how supportive people have been, whether it's viewers or people donating prizes. In August, I did a 4-week fundraiser for 26 LGBTQ charities. We raised £20,000, but I had about 500 prizes donated in the end.
Oh my God.
Which is absurd. And that's from like all over the place in the gaming industry, physical prizes, digital prizes. We had Charlie Cohen, who's like a fashion label, were like £100 voucher. So it overwhelmingly like amazing support on that, which really helped with that specific charity fundraiser. But yeah, it is exhausting. So I definitely next year maybe need to take a year to have a slightly more chill time, because 2 years of fundraising is amazing, but mental health does need to maybe take a priority at some point.
Exists as well.
It does. I've experienced it so many times that even at this point when I know burnout is coming, I'm like, it'd be fine. Just we'll deal with it later. Which is not the way to deal with it at all. But yeah, you just go through it, because 12 years in gaming, content creation, the amount of changes that all the platforms have gone through, especially when you're younger as well, you've got no concept of what burnout is because you've got all the energy in the world.
Yeah.
It must be super hard as well. Like, I know that we've all probably got personal projects that we're super invested in and like emotionally invested in. And it's really hard to draw the line to say like, oh, you know what, I'm actually going to take a break from this, or like just put it on pause for a second, because otherwise I won't be able to do it at all, because I'm going to burn out to the point where I don't have any passion for it anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. For sure. And when it's something that it's like it's a hobby that's become a profession as well, there's an additional element of almost doubling down on the whole thing. because you're like, it's something I love. Therefore, maybe if I just work harder, the burnout thing won't happen. And then you get surprised when it's twice as bad. So yeah, it can be really challenging, and I think it's almost not a natural thing. It shouldn't be a natural thing, but I think it's almost an organic thing that every content creator and potentially everyone who works in the internet sphere and juggles loads of different things at once is going to hit burnout at least once.
Yeah, because you're kind of, especially with people who are on a variety of different platforms as well, trying to manage those all simultaneously without burning out is an impossible task.
Yeah, and then it's also all the side things as well. People look at what you're doing, they're like, "Oh, you stream." So for example, say I streamed 5 hours. They'll think that's all I've done in the day, and it's like, no, in reality, I'm doing a podcast right now. After this, I'm probably going to go write a coffee post that is like 2 weeks overdue. I spent 2 hours last night drafting like sponsored posts for an upcoming brand deal. So it's all of that alongside everything else you're adding on, and it is entirely about it's learning where that point is where you go, I physically can't do this.
Yeah.
And
Probably
unfortunately,
getting-
unless you've experienced that before, and again, like with me, it's definitely taken me a couple of goes to go, here we go, this is the time, maybe just calm down a bit before the burnout happens, just to recognize your limits.
Yeah, and I guess specifically if you're like new to this sort of gig, getting a lot of opportunities is something that's really exciting, but then also you don't want to say no because you're new to it and you're like, I want to take every opportunity I can get. But again, it's like that kind of not what's the word for it? Trade-off between being able to keep doing what you're doing sustainably whilst also taking on new things.
Yeah, especially as well if it is your only source of income as well. Because if you're a part-time streamer, for example, you've got another job, you can potentially go, well, the streams are too much right now, I can focus a little bit more on the other whatever it is that's going on. But yeah, the temptation for when something's going a bit wonky with the algorithm or whatever, the temptation is just double down is absurd. And it's really not the way to do it, because you're just not going to win that way.
Yeah,
you're just going to hurt yourself some more.
Yeah,
I think that's why I look at kind of full-time streamers and I'm just in awe at how you guys kind of keep it going so much. Like I had having a bit like it with full time. It's like even if you're having a bad day, you still have to kind of push through and.
Yeah, I mean, I know content creators who've had like serious news before streaming, and have just gone, I'll just deal with it. I'll just slap a face on and push through. And it's like, that's not healthy. But there very much is that element of and this is partly why when you said about community and being welcome, I don't try and like put on a face or anything. I don't try and like up my energy. I know streamers who are like, hey guys, how you doing? And it's like, that's fine. But if you're going to do 5 hours, good luck maintaining that energy.
Keep that energy up. No.
No. It's just not, especially if you're then playing an engaging game as well. It's like, it's just too much. So I'm like, look, if you come in the chat, you're very welcome, so long as you are not mean to anyone. And this is just how it's going to go. And I don't intentionally set out to be like, oh, welcome, come on in. I mean, obviously, I'd like to hope that is something, as you said, you've experienced it, but I don't actively go like, hey, everybody, because it just adds to that.
No, but you have like a very genuine, welcoming energy that I think comes across really well.
Oh, thanks.
Oh, definitely. I agree.
That's very kind.
Yeah, I always I do pop in occasionally, and I'm also very honoured to be a VIP in your chat. Oh my god!
Yeah, I do you know what, the amount of people, because I only use the VIP slots for like charity peeps, devs if they're popping into chat, stream team, friends, etc. So I can see people. I could be like, that is somebody who I know from something else, and I want to be able to say hi. So that's why you're VIP. So I can go, oh, it's Rosie.
Yeah, it's so nice though, because I'm like, I know that the chat can sometimes get really busy, so I'm not really expecting you to see it, especially if you're playing a game. But then you always seem to catch it, and I'm like, oh, this is nice.
Yeah. Reading speed for me has always been pretty good. So that is kind of a plus for doing streaming, is I can kind of keep up with chat when it's reasonably like the size that I experience. God knows if it was at like 2,000, 3,000 people, probably not. But yeah, I try and take the time with it, because even if it's just a hello, that is a hello to someone instead of just ignoring them. And if they just wanted me to ignore them, I'd continue on YouTube, where there's no back and forth. Versus Twitch, where I can actually go, hello, how are you? How's your Friday been?
So do you prefer like that viewer
absolutely
interaction?
Like as soon as I moved off of YouTube, and I did try and do an overlapping time where I was like, I'm going to do written essays for YouTube and I'm going to edit them all, etc. And that was the point at which I was like, no, burnout is coming. Something has to go. Get rid of that, because that is the least profitable thing. And when I kind of look at profitability, obviously I am, running a business, paying the bills, etc. But like, there's also like an ethical profitability, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, so like, I'd rather do a charity fundraiser than make a video, if that makes sense. Because it's like, even though it's the same energy amount, like someone is going to benefit more from that than the amount of time and energy I'm going to put into something that will probably be demonetized or make nothing. So got rid of that, and basically have now, instead of using coffee to write up effectively the same thing that I do in a video, but minus the work. And it literally almost like a light switch when I went, no more YouTube. It's like, no more YouTube, weight lifted, done. And it's in part just because the grind is absurd, especially if your channel's like, my channel was around in 2011. So it's been through so many versions of the algorithm that like it probably doesn't know which way is up anyway. And it's just, it's just not worth it. It's not worth it when you could be doing amazing other things with that time. And also talking to chat.
I remember sort of you were doing the classic Tomb Raiders, and you were telling me like how to modify the file so I could play it on the computer without it crashing and stuff like that. And your streams, it's just always like such a wholesome place, and I think it's because you're just being you.
Yeah.
Because you can recognize when people are sort of like full of it. And me personally, like I have bad days, and I just don't think I could keep up that energy and go, "Hi everyone, welcome to my stream."
This is the thing as well, is people.
Is that your impression of a high energy streamer, Jake?
That's totally.
I actively dislike people, not people specifically, people with really, really, really positive energy who are really like extroverted about it. Because a part of me is like, well, what are you hiding?
Yeah,
like, why are you projecting?
On another stance,
yeah,
like no one is that happy all the time.
Exactly.
It's okay not to be that positive. It's fine.
Exactly. So like a part of me in my head, I'm like, I can't be bothered with that.
They're not trustworthy.
I'm just a grumpy old woman in terms of like content creation, 33. So like I'm well like approaching retirement.
Oh, you're in your prime. What are you talking about?
But yeah, it's a very different vibe. It's a similar thing to like you go to events and all the 19-year-olds are just like, yeah, let's go party. Next day, they're springing out of bed at 7 a.m, fresh faced, and you're going, I went to bed. I had a bath and went to bed at 10 p.m. and I still want to go back to sleep. So I think you just
oh my god.
I think
I'm
you just
24. I shouldn't feel that way.
But I think it's the thing of like, it's an expectation in the industry that everything has to be, hi guys, blah blah blah, and it's like, it doesn't have to be.
No.
And you shouldn't have to. If you're that kind of person, great, but you shouldn't have to force yourself and your personality to fit into that, because it also, from a psychological perspective, it really messes you up. Like genuinely pretending that you are someone else can, like, it psychologically can expend so much more energy, because you're trying to change everything in terms of energy levels, attitude, all of that. Like, you're basically acting, aren't you? So I haven't got the bandwidth, the mental bandwidth for it anymore.
No, I totally agree. I think it's super hard to be able to. I I don't know how people stream for like hours on end anyway. Like so many props to everyone who does that, because I couldn't even be myself for 5 hours with a camera. I just like, I need a nap. I need to have a break.
I honestly don't know how I've worked up to 5 hours. Sometimes I do 7. If it's a busy week and I've got a lot of games to cover, I do 7. And I'm like, how? Like,
Yeah,
where's
because it's not even just like, because I know some people love to say like, oh, well, they're just playing games, and it's like, no, they are not just playing games. They're playing games. They're being entertaining. They're trying to keep up with chat. If you're doing charity, you're trying to keep up with donations. Like, there's so much going on in your head, also while like making sure that you're, coming across well on your stream, and you're doing everything right by your branding and stuff or whatever. It's like, I don't know how people do it. It's amazing.
Yeah, I think if I'd been thrown into it, having not done the YouTube stuff for that long, I probably would struggle. Just because I was used to sitting down and doing batch recordings and effectively doing 5 hours, but just talking to a wall. So I think that helped a lot. But I definitely notice now, if I do 5 days a week, 7-hour streams, I'm beginning to go, this is a bit much now. So I might just dial it back a little bit permanently to the old 5 hours, and I get some work done in the morning as well. Because that's the other thing, is there's only so much time in the day, and like my other half's got a real job, as in
a real job. You have a real job.
As in like 9 to 5, has to do work meetings, all of that. So it's not really the best job to be having alongside someone who streams, especially someone who streams things like horror games. So he is incredibly patient about all of that.
Someone who is honking with concern in the late hours of the evening, I think is your term of phrase.
Yes, I just, so it like for us, it's like I do streams during the day. Very rare occasions I'll do night times or weekends, because that's the time when I should not be doing things.
Yeah,
that's the downtime. So a lot of streamers will do night times, and they'll go into like 2 a.m. and then you end up having the cycle of you stayed up later, so you get up later, which doesn't help. And I have done that, and it is fun at the time. But if you ever need to actually adapt to going to the shops at a normal time, or any of that stuff, or doctor's appointments, suddenly you're like, oh, I have to get up. I have to be like 9 a.m. No, thank you.
That's like the middle of the night.
Yeah, what is this? So I think that sort of helps like keep me a little bit in check. For sure.
So moving on to like the next question that we've got, if someone came up to you right now and they were like, I do streaming like pretty regularly, I want to start moving into charity streaming specifically, what would be like a piece of advice that you think you'd offer to them in terms of starting out as a charity streamer, or at least starting out doing charity campaigns within their streaming schedule?
So I think the important thing is to kind of be aware of what you want to do with that slot. Like, what day do you want to do? What charity do you want to do? Like, if you're just going, I want to fundraise for charity, go on some of the like fundraising websites, have a little browse. Maybe there's some sort of cause that's close to your heart, like animals, gardening, mental health, whatever. And have a little look. Places like Tiltify and Just Giving are really handy for things like that. And they also have pretty good FAQs on how to implement all that into your streaming software. Maybe start with one and just see what happens, especially if you go for something like obviously Safer in Our World has a community Discord. So it's like, maybe that's a place to go. Pop onto a Discord and see if there's any sort of upcoming community events that you could get involved in, get a familiar feel to the to fundraising. When I did the August LGBTQ fundraiser, I tried to get as many people involved as possible, because there was loads of smaller streamers that were going, I want to fundraise, but I am either anxious to do it on my own, or I've got no idea how to do it. So in part, that was like almost providing a model for them. So go and look at other streamers, go and see what they do. And also, any amount raised is amazing. Don't go, oh, I didn't raise, I don't know, 1,000, 2,000, whatever it is, because it doesn't matter. You're trying to do something for charity, and that's the important thing. And also, a fact sheet is always handy. Just print it out as well. like, or if you can, or write it on a notebook, because I can guarantee you, if you have it on the screen and you're like, oh, I'm just going to do a little organic pitch whilst, I don't know, say you're in Phasmophobia and you're being chased by a ghost and there's no one else around, you're like, oh, I might just go, by the way, guys, don't forget we're fundraising for whatever it is. Did you know that blah? You won't be able to find that on your screen for love nor money during that time. So write it down, even if it's just a few facts, so that you've got something in front of you. Even if it's so like for August, I printed one out daily for every single fundraiser. So it was, who is the charity? Where are they? What's the demographic they help? How do they help them? And also like examples of what, so like £9 could help buy a hygiene kit or something like that. And that will help, like having some structure for all the bits where you're going, ooh, I want to talk about the charity, but I don't just want to go, hey, we're fundraising for. So I would say prep in advance, stuff like that. Maybe hop onto like a community Discord, so you're not just doing it all on your own. Those are the two big things.
Yeah, I think it super helps as well. Like if you're fundraising for a charity that you're really personally attached to or invested in some way, like it's gonna really help your drive with it, and it'll connect you more to what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Like we've almost organically, actually. So I've been doing fundraising for Alzheimer's Research UK for several years because my gran has it, and also Alzheimer's Society this year. And because games are slowly starting to include more organic representations of it, we've started having these like almost not charity conversations in the games where they appear, that have then led to me almost doing the pitch again and then popping off and donating. So it's definitely worth doing that, because also you may end up going, actually, I can use this information elsewhere, for sure. And that personal connection is super important. Obviously, if you think it's going to upset you on stream, then that is, that's whether you want to share that or not, and how much you want to share that, because again, it is your private life if you want to, and obviously parasocial stuff is a thing.
I think stay within your boundaries if you're going to go for something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
If you're comfortable with it, then great, but yeah,
exactly. So like I'll talk about my gran and the type of dementia she has, and I'll vaguely go into things like treatment and how she is, etc. But I'm not going to go like, oh, this is exactly what happened, this is where she is, etc., etc. So there were like I try and set those boundaries when I draw on personal experience. But it absolutely adds to it, for sure.
It's really good advice. No, thank you for sharing that. I can imagine, even when it's like a personal thing you're sort of raising money for, that it still strikes a sort of chord inside you. I know how devastating dementia can be. I lost my granddad Christmas. I think it was December 26th in 2019, and it breaks your heart. So I mean, I understand like how it feels, and absolutely massive props to you for really just raising money, raising awareness, and covering it. So thank you for that as well.
Oh, it's a no-brainer from my end, really. It's there's far too many people who are affected directly or indirectly by it. See, I'm doing the pitch now. It's like get the stats out. It's one of those things where it's like everybody is going to be affected in some way, and it to just sort of not. It's also about educating younger people, because with all of this stuff as well, because they're the ones who are going to have to look after us when we get older. But we're leaving. Oh God, I'm going to sound. We're leaving the planet to them,
Yeah.
So, whilst most of my demographic is a similar age to me, there are some that are maybe in their 20s, and it's like, well, look, let's talk about this stuff, because you'll either experience it in your grandparents or close family members, or later down the line you will experience it. So yeah, it's absolutely worth talking about and bringing personal experience. But yeah, just go carefully with it, for sure.
Yeah, like the fact that a lot of content creators are embracing talking about like very real subjects as well, because whilst entertainment is great and that might be their primary focus of their content, like talking about life is ultimately very real, and as long as you're comfortable enough talking about it, it's probably going to help a lot of people who might not have experienced that before or don't have people they're comfortable talking about it with in their personal life.
Yeah, absolutely. Like even if someone's lurking in chat as well, like you could be helping. Because like I literally had someone yesterday who's like, I was lurking for half a year and I had no idea, because they are like absolutely confident, chatty, lovely people. But it's taken them that long to get there. And it is really good to see, because I was part of, back in like 2012, 2013, I was like one of those like opinionated loud women, which basically means just someone who has ideas. And as a result of that, a lot of the time I was like, I don't necessarily know whether I want to talk about this thing that is important to me and like women and minorities on the internet, because I feel like I'm just going to be shouted down. This is like partly things like YouTube comment sections, etc. So it is really refreshing to see, and I think it is in part because it is a more diverse atmosphere now. And it's really good to see, because it means that you're hearing personal stories. It does ground those people. So even if they're like all excited on stream, etc., they're still a real person. They're not this like imaginary character.
Yeah, and that's what I quite like about that as well, because I think people often forget that this person that they're watching on screen is actually a real person with feelings and emotions.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, again, there's that balance of like, again, we go into parasocial areas in terms of like, don't get too friendly. But I think it would be nice if, you know, more people on the internet remembered that other people are human, and not just like someone they can spew a wall of text at.
Yes. I think it also takes a bit of time to be able to grow into that person as well. Like,
oh yeah, absolutely.
Even from a personal perspective, like I didn't really start talking openly about mental health and my mental health it took me years to be able to do that. And then it's very easy to forget once you're in that place, other people are in the position that you were a few years ago and they're not ready yet. But if you're talking about it, it can sometimes give them like a boost to be able to think, oh, well, I could do that. I just need a bit of practice.
You're way ahead of where I was at 24 as well. I think as well, the problem is, especially when it's content creation, there's a lot of ego, especially if you start out and you're like, I am the bomb, I'm amazing. And sometimes you can get lost in that, especially if you become incredibly successful, you lose sight of like reality. So yeah, that sphere changing has definitely helped. Like I probably still don't talk about mental health enough, but I am a lot more open to talking about it with other people, and okay to say I'm not having a good day, which back then you didn't do, because it's just like, if I show any sort of weakness, I am a goner, because you know, they're just a woman on the internet.
Well, that was the climate that you were in, right?
Oh my god, I remember once I made a comment. This was in Mafia 3, to give it the context. Mafia 3, we were talking about, I was explaining the context about it, the year of Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination, right? So I'm going like, this is the setting, this is what's happening, this is the current situation of what's going on, and I ended up talking about pay discrepancy. And I so literally just went like, the black community are obviously going to get paid less, etc. I said, you can still see this today in some areas. The gender pay gap is an ongoing argument. Oh my god, they went off. They were like, no, this doesn't exist. What are you talking about, stupid woman? There is no what? No, it's a lie. And it's like, okay, thank you. And it's like, that was the climate that I was experiencing. And it's just like, well, do I want to push back against that? Because as a result, you're getting this very like, well, if I say anything, I'm going to get abuse, but also I'm going to get people not watching the content. So there's that like discussion you almost have to have with yourself about, who do I want experiencing and interacting with my content?
Yeah. Do I want a lot of viewers that don't agree with my personal values? Probably not.
And I think this is part of the problem in some pockets of the internet is it's snowballed, and you've now got people with giant audiences who have said nothing for years, who I would like to hope somewhere in the back of their heads are going, well, how do we have this conversation with my chat? And how do we I obviously have no idea, but I'd like to hope that somewhere in the back of their heads they are considering it.
Yes.
Because it's not enough for the smaller creators or the mid-range creators who actually, quite frankly, probably have more of a handle on their chats for obvious reasons because they're smaller. But it is absolutely possible with a bigger community to also manage that. But you have to set some very clear rules and boundaries from the
Yeah, I
start.
was gonna say, I think it's quite evident that you can very much set the tone with your chat and call out when someone's is going against your rules. And
I'm quite bad at that because this is something that I've also enjoyed is the subtle shift from ignore the troll, also the cat in the background,
I
ignore the
can't hear it,
troll,
don't worry.
to confronting the troll a little bit. And I'm not saying like shout abuse at them, but letting people just sort of like just blocking them is absolutely fine if that's something that is in your mental capacity and you have to do that. But they do also need to be challenged in some way because otherwise they just carry on. They just wander about causing drama. So I am a little bit bad in terms of like popping off if someone comes in and starts something with me or my chat. But on the other side of that does mean that my chat generally, I think, know that if someone comes in, I'm going to protect them as much as myself.
Yeah, because it's not just the space, it's not just your space that you're protecting. No. It's a lot of other people who might also be affected by the things that this person is saying.
Yeah. A really good example is The Last of Us 2. The amount of people coming in, because I've got quite an androgynous face. So many comments about Abby, and just so many transphobic comments, either at myself or at Abby. And it was just like, mate, just get out. Like, this is not the place for you. I don't know what you are smoking today, but get lost. Like, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that you are upset so much by women lifting that you have to go around the internet and shout at people.
There were so many comments on that on Twitter, and it was just like, oh my God, guys.
Even when the evidence is there, you go into the gym, you can see that they've got like a full-on like cattle resource and pigs and all of that. And it's like she absolutely has the protein to bulk up like this.
Women have muscles. Oh
good
my
God.
God.
Yeah. And the best part was I was doing quite a lot of stuff at the gym involving like deadlifting and that. So I had like, they're not there at the moment, but I had some muscles. So I was just like, yeah, I'm sorry. Like I upset you. But also get your transphobic ass out of here because what the heck? Because also there is a trans character in it. So chat was so excited to meet Lev as well as just thirsting over Abby in a like people either wanted to be her or wanted to just be with her. So it just very, very clearly when you come into my chat that is the vibe. Just absolute thirst and inclusivity.
Yeah. Why can't we just celebrate these characters without picking holes and trying to be like negative about it? I just don't get it.
I genuinely don't understand the people that go around flaming games for all these choices. I personally found the Abby and Lev storyline, like, obviously, spoilers, but, you know, I was angry at Abby for what she did, but, like, the story progression, the character progression, it's like I became so attached to Lev and Abby's story. Yeah. But I'm always browsing Twitter, as they say, doom scrolling, and so many people get angry about so many choices, like the recent controversy of Aloy's face being a bit more.
Oh my God!
You know, and it's like.
Oh, also, what's it in God of War 2? Not God of War 2, Ragnarok.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's in fact, also for Spoken, so we're seeing more black leads, and it's like, yes, thank you. Like, along with Deathloop, yes, this is so refreshing to see and to be done well. And they were just losing their mind about it, like to the point the devs had to go, she's a frost giant. Like, Do you want to calm down?
Yeah.
Like, you don't know what a frost giant looks like, buddy. Like, go away. Everyone else on the internet, she turns around, she smiles, and everyone's going, who is she? I love her.
Yes, I saw so much like on Twitter and on social media, everyone was just like, oh my God, this is amazing. Who is this person? I need to know more about them. And it's just great.
Just don't get the mentality behind it. The rage, the anger, you know,
Yeah.
it's very strange.
It comes from a place of like, just,
I think it's insecurity.
It is. It's you're taking away something that belongs to me, or I feel belongs to me, even though like 90% of it you've still got, buddy. It's the same outrage when you see things ported to PC and that, and it's like you're not losing the PlayStation version or the Xbox version. It's just more people get to experience it, which means more money for the studio, which means more games. Like, come on,
console. It's the console wars that really
God.
get to me.
Yeah.
Like, they really get to me, and you kind of get a lot that are like sort of defending their console, but also slating the other the opposition console, but going, I'm better because I'm defending it. But it's like, you're just as bad as the people that are. You're all, just stop. It's a piece of plastic. It plays your favorite things. Please get on with it. The companies don't care.
Yeah.
You know, they want you to enjoy their products, not fight about them.
Haven't like Xbox even been like, oh yeah, you should totally get a PlayStation 2, and like I've seen a few things about that on social media.
There's been some, because they all tweet each other, and also they don't realise that people swap companies. Like, you don't just work at one gaming company. Like, I know people who have worked at like 4 or 5 major companies, just like slowly over time, moving between them, just moving jobs.
It's okay to enjoy more than one thing at one time.
I remember when Fallout Shelter came out, like the mobile game, I went to go and do a capture event at like a private dev lounge for a couple of games, not Bethesda. I went in, everyone's on their phone playing Fallout Shelter, and they're like, hiya, give us a sec. And obviously I'm also playing it. So people don't think about that. They don't think, well, maybe they've got friends over at the other studio. Maybe they also like games. Wild concept. You work in gaming, you like video games.
You know, content creation, everybody's wanting to get in on it. And we at Safe Our World encourage self-care, but what tips can you give?
Self-care is, like absolutely number one. Totally agree with you there. I've not, having said that, I have neglected my self-care recently far too much. So I owe myself several months of quite intensive gardening, because that's part of my self-care routine, is to just not be in the office or the spare bedroom basically of my house. So I like to do a little bit of gardening. The garden has been heavily neglected, so that's something I'll do. You don't have to do outdoor activities. I didn't think that when I was looking at doing this sort of stuff in my 20s, I didn't think I'd be going, oh, I'm going to go in the garden in my 30s. I'm turning into my mum. The older I get, the more I'm like, yep, no, there's a similar hobby. So you need something that is completely separate to all of this. Whether it is like, also don't turn that into whatever your content is. Keep it separate. You need to have at least one thing. If you're going to do something like gaming as your content, don't also throw in gardening, etc., etc. Keep something as like your thing. Work up when it comes to timings. Start with a little bit. If you can manage that, maybe increase the time. Don't just go straight in with like 5 hours. And also, like, be kind to yourself in terms of, like, you're starting out, you're learning things, you're gonna make mistakes in terms of tech stuff. So just, it's a learning experience. Don't be too hard on yourself. I'm still an absolute hot mess half of the time after 12 years. It's kind of part of the brand. The chat very much knows this, and absolutely just,
no one is going to be perfect all of the time.
No, exactly.
Nope.
And that, again, it's that chasing that unattainable thing, which mentally is stressful. So little manageable chunks in terms of that. If you've got any like side stuff you need to do that's associated with the content, maybe allocate yourself a point in the day. Also, sleep-wise, for God's sake, have a routine. She says, as someone who's an insomniac, even if it's just going like, I'm not going to stay up till 3 a.m. streaming, because if you get stuck in that loop, you will mess your schedule up. So basically, unfortunately, a lot of the answers are be an adult in terms of like, you've got to think about the things like going to the shops and booking your appointments. But yeah, just take it slow when you start. I think it's the most important thing. And also do something that you enjoy, and don't hop on a trend. That's the big thing. That's partly why I do variety gaming, is I can't pick a trend. But also, if you're jumping on a trend and you're not doing a game or whatever content it is that you love, then it potentially will be artificial, and they'll be able to tell.
Yeah, on some level, you have to enjoy what you're doing and what you're playing and stuff.
Yeah, because otherwise, at some point the mask slips, and it's just like, oh no, you could just see the dead eyes.
Yeah, well, it's with any job, really. You could tell if someone doesn't enjoy their job, because if you see them at work and they're miserable, then it's like either they're having a bad day or they just don't like their job.
And also it's okay to not call it a job when you're starting out, or call it a job if that mentally for you means that you treat it as a like, I'm going to go to work now. That entirely depends on how you function as a person.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Yeah, so I guess that was some vague self-care tips that were just sort of flailed into the air there.
No, I like them.
No, it's great. No, it's great. Thank you.
Yeah, I think ultimately self-care is going to look different for everybody, but as long as it's separate to what you're doing for work and for anything that you're making money out of, I guess, and that's like got more pressure on it than just you can just do it to enjoy yourself, then that's probably a good start.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, thanks so much for coming on. If any listeners, if you'd like to continue the conversation about what we've talked about today, please do tweet us at SIOW Podcast or at Safe in Our Worlds on Twitter. There's a lot more discussion to be had around these sorts of things, and we always encourage people to get involved in the discussion as well, because there's so many things and so many different opinions that you can have about it, and I think it's always interesting to share your own views and see what other people think. But on a final note, if you are struggling, please know that there is support out there to help you. And if you're looking for somewhere to start, we have a list of global helplines on our website at safeinourworld.org, as well as a lot of different information about various feelings and symptoms as well. So thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you next time.